Hello everyone, this will be Danny and the Phantom, written and read by Insect Overlord. This fic currently has 3 out of 12 chapters and 6,000 words, though I have all of the chapters planned out. It's rated for mature audiences and has archive warnings for graphic depictions of violence and major character death. Here's the summary. Maddie stood frozen from her spot by the kitchen doorway. Danny was possessed. Her sweet, darling Danny was possessed by Phantom. What had she done? Or, Maddie and Jack were right. Danny is not Phantom. He is possessed by Phantom. Will they save him, or will he slowly lose all aspects of himself to the otherworldly entity until there's nothing left? This is Chapter 1, titled The Accident, and has content warnings for death, graphic depictions of pain, medical setting, and grief/guilt. Maddie Fenton knew she wasn't the best parent. She oftentimes placed her work above her kids and had missed more than one soccer game. She always told herself that it was fine, that she and Jack were doing good for the world, and by association, their kids, through their research, that a few school plays and parent-teacher conferences were nothing in the grand scheme of things. But this was much more than a missed soccer game or school play. Much, much more. Maddie stood with her head in her hands in the emergency waiting room. Her husband and daughter sat beside her. Jazz looked just as devastated as her. Jazz was furious. How could you leave it unlocked? He's 14. Of course he would be curious and want to see what his parents have been working on for years. That's oh so important, she exclaimed. She was pacing, hands waving wildly about. Maddie knew that she was just stressed and worried, same as her, but gosh, she was right. Why was she like this? Her kids were the best thing to ever happen to her. She loved them. That was why she needed to protect them from ghosts. But what if she was so busy trying to protect them from one threat that she completely missed the much bigger one, herself? Maddie vowed, never again. She was going to protect her children from everything, not just ghosts. An accident like her son's will never happen again. Danny woke up feeling heavy. It was like there was a weight sitting on his chest that made it hard for him to breathe. He idly wondered if he left his binder on as he slowly twitched his fingers. When he moved his left hand, he felt a buzzing sensation, not unlike the pins and needles he would sometimes get from sitting in one position for too long. When he tried to lift his left hand, it wouldn't move more than a few inches off the bed, and caused a sharp, heavy feeling to travel up his arm into his chest. It wasn't painful per se, but something in the back of his mind told him it should be. To Danny, though, it just felt strange. Let's not move that, all right?" came a feminine voice from his right. Confused, Danny blinked open his eyes. There was a tall woman with tan skin and blonde, hip-length hair, standing next to him holding a clipboard. What baffled Danny the most was that she was wearing scrubs. Was he in a hospital? Why? Danny opened his mouth to ask just that, but as soon as he sucked in a breath, he was violently thrown into a coughing fit. The coughing made his chest ache with the same not quite pain as moving his arm. It made him feel funny. "Oh my, let's get you some water. You've been asleep for quite a while, mister, so don't push yourself too hard," the nurse said as she bustled to the nearby sink to fill up a cup. After he drank a little from the straw she offered, he tried again. What happened? His voice sounded a lot quieter than it usually did, like he didn't have the energy to speak. The nurse smiled, but it was a sad smile, the one you give pet owners when you tell them their dog isn't going to make it. Was she about to tell Danny his dog was going to die? Wait, Danny didn't have a dog. "You had a little accident that stopped your heart and gave you some electrical burns. You've been in surgery for a few hours," she slowly informed him. Danny's heart had stopped. That couldn't be good. And what did she mean by accident? Your family is outside waiting if you're ready to see them, she informed him after waiting a few minutes for him to process her first statement. Danny was thankful. His processing speed had been really slow since he woke up. Hopefully that would get better soon. He was sure Lancer wouldn't be as patient as the nurse. Okay, they can come in, he whispered. He still didn't feel up to talking too loud. Not 1 minute after the nurse left, Danny's family burst into the room. Well, burst might be a bit of a stretch, seeing as they were pretty quiet about it. The whole thing felt surreal to Danny. His family was never this subdued. "Hey, Dano, how are you feeling?" his dad asked. His eyes darted from Danny's left arm to his face to the ground and back. Danny had never heard his dad be so quiet before. Danny wasn't sure how he was feeling. Tired, confused, slow? He just shrugged. Or he tried to, but his left shoulder barely moved. By this point, he had deduced that that was probably where the vague accident the nurse mentioned originated. Before his dad could respond, or worse, try to hug Danny, someone briefly knocked before walking into the room, not waiting for a response. "Ah, you're all here. Wonderful," she said towards Danny's parents, before turning to Danny. "Danny, I'm happy to see you're awake. You are not in any pain, right?" She sounded genuinely concerned, and that shocked him more than it really should. The only person he was used to being concerned about him was Jazz. He thought over the question for a moment. He felt funny, but not in pain. At least he didn't think so. He shook his head. His parents shared a look with the woman. What? Did he take too long to answer? When she turned back to Danny, she smiled warmly. "I'm happy to hear that. I'm Dr. Kinsley, your primary provider at this hospital. I wanted to go over your surgery with you and your parents." "Thank you, Dr. Kinsley, for helping our son," his mom said. "He's going to be okay, right?" She sounded worried. For Danny. When was the last time that had happened? He shared a look with Jazz, who must have been able to read minds because she smiled tightly and shrugged. "He's not in any immediate danger right now," the doctor started, and Danny could visibly see some of the tension leave his family's shoulders. But, as is the case with most electrical victims, that could change fast. The tension returned. "There's the risk of infection around the skin grafts, heart problems, and even seizures. Even still, Danny's accident should very well have been fatal. He is very lucky." She sounded serious. What had even happened to him? At this point, Danny wasn't sure he even wanted to know. As his parents and the doctor talked more about medical stuff Danny didn't want to hear, his sister crawled up onto the bed beside him. After moving a few tubes and wires, she settled herself by his right arm. It shouldn't have worked, but Danny was small enough that there was plenty of room to share. Soon enough, Danny found himself nodding off. Just the act of staying awake for 15 minutes made him feel like he had run a marathon. The heavy weight was back on his chest, as massive as ever, and Danny just wanted to sleep. He would feel better when he woke up, he was sure. Danny was in the basement. He wasn't supposed to be down here, but his parents had left it unlocked when they left, and they had been working on something for months. Something big and important. More important than Danny. He made sure to put on his hazmat suit his parents got him for Christmas a few years back. It was a bit small on him, but he wanted to take some precautions, given that his parents worked with radioactive material. Sure, they left said material in the refrigerator often enough that their food came to life and tried to eat them, so he was probably already contaminated, but still, safety. Danny descended the stairs slowly. There wasn't anyone in the house, but he still felt like he would alert someone if he was too loud. Across the lab was a huge device that spanned an entire wall, with stray wires and metal pieces everywhere. His parents had dubbed it the portal. Apparently, it was supposed to lead to a whole other plane of existence, with the same beings that, according to his parents, were responsible for natural disasters, extreme human corruption, and supernatural horror stories. Jazz and Danny thought it was a bit far-fetched, but if they were right, it would be a huge discovery. Danny stood in front of the portal, trying to take it all in. It was roughly double his height, and gave off a strange aura. Danny ran a hand along the edge of the doorway. The metal it was made with was high quality, and must have cost a fortune. He wondered how his parents could afford it when they couldn't even afford to buy him new clothes for his first year of high school. They had given him $20 and told him to find everything in the town thrift shop. Dash had gotten a laugh out of that. Danny shook his head. Focus. He took a deep breath before stepping inside the machine. Was it a good idea? Probably not. But Danny was smarter than he looked, and if he could fix his parents' invention, they would be so proud of him. His dad would ruffle his hair, and his mom would give him a hug. Maybe they'd even go on a trip to camp under the stars like they used to. With a new surge of determination, Danny started inspecting the interior for flaws. The wiring was a mess, and there were pieces strewn everywhere that made it hard for Danny to move around without stepping on anything. As he surveyed the lower edges of the walls, he noticed something. The on and off switch. Inside the portal. Danny ran a gloved hand down his face. His parents may be geniuses, but they were also very stupid. He reached out to reroute the wiring to outside the portal when there was a loud slam of the basement door, and his dad walked in. I know we tried the conductor particle route already, but I really think we should try a second. The loud slam and surprise of a sudden voice made Danny jump. His hand slipped from the wires he was holding to the lever he had yet to unattach. He lost his balance and reflectively pulled down. Pain. Danny's vision was filled with green, and it was as if pain was the only sensation he had ever felt. All he could think about, feel, remember, was the horrible, agonizing feeling of being burned from the inside out. It could have been hours or just seconds, but from the green haze he noticed a figure. They started as an amorphous blob before they morphed into something the same height and build as him, only with white hair, green eyes, and a sickly blue tint to their skin. "Poor thing, let me help you," came their creaking voice. Danny didn't respond, couldn't respond even if his brain was able to process the creature's words. They reached out and grabbed a hold of his shoulders with both hands before falling into Danny's body. He felt a sudden shock of cold before the pain finally, blessedly stopped and everything went black. Danny woke up with a start, but he couldn't move. His body was caked in sweat and his eyes darted about in fear. It was dark in the room, the only light coming from the moon outside the window and the faint glow of his beeping oxygen monitor. Most people would be screaming and sitting up in bed after dreaming of their accident, of their death, but Danny was too tired. Death. Danny had died. He knew he had, but he was still here. How? "Because of me," giggled a voice in the back of his mind. "I saved you. I'll always help you, so just leave everything to me." That was nice. At least someone was looking out for him. Danny drifted back off with a smile on his face. This concludes Chapter 1 of Danny and the Phantom. I hope you guys liked this. In this, Phantom is going to be, I would say evil, but not necessarily evil if it's not, conscious living. It doesn't have a basis of morality, so I guess it can't technically be evil. Some of the main things that are going to be happening in the story are going to be things like grief, heart issues, realistic heart issues, seizures, chronic pain, underage substance use, child neglect, and the ghost attacks are going to be realistic. So that's the type of stuff you can expect from this. The next chapter, I don't know when it will be up, and I also don't know when I'm going to write the 4th chapter. But it will hopefully be soon. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and thank you so much for listening.